Hello everyone, and welcome to another midweek video message update. Again, and as always, I pray for your safety, your health, and your wellness. Well, as you can see, I'm wearing my important shirt today, my clergy collar. The occasion is that I have just returned to my office after attending the funeral for Pastor David Boone, who faithfully served Christ Lutheran Church here for over 40 years. For those of you who are not able to attend or to participate online, I simply want to take a few minutes and reiterate to us, for those of you who haven't heard, as well as those who have heard, remind you, encapsulate, if you will, the gospel message that Bishop Don Chris proclaimed to us this morning. Bishop Chris preached from Mark's gospel, the parable of the sower, a parable that we know very well, where the sower, of course, is God, sows on rocky ground and sows on a hard-trodden path, and sows among the thorns, and sows in good soil. And how often do we hear that parable and then try to determine what kind of soil we are? But to do so is to miss the import of that parable. So I just want to take a few moments and reiterate the gospel good news that Bishop Chris preached at our worship this morning, including the memorialization of Pastor David Boone. And Bishop Chris reminded us that God is always sowing. God is always sowing God's seeds of love. God is always sowing God's seeds of God's eternal kingdom. And not only is God always sowing, but God is always sowing everywhere and in some pretty peculiar places. On rocky soil, on thorny soil, on path soil that is hard trodden. Chance places where seeds are not going to grow. But in that reality, we hear that God comes to us in our struggles, in our difficult places, where we wouldn't expect that God would chase us down with God's love and mercy. And finally, Bishop Chris wanted to remind us today, proclaimed this about God, that God sows all the time and God sows everywhere God's seeds of love, of unconditional welcome, embrace, and holy purpose. God's seeds of God's perfect and holy kingdom, because God loves you. Because God loves all people. Continue to remember the ministry and the life you shared with Pastor David Boone. Continue to remember his family, his children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren in your prayers. And let us continue to be and become the church, the congregation, the community of faith that God intends. God is changing the world through you. Love your neighbor. Amen.